Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago, one of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose, as long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we're going to be talking about this week in Cubs and White Sox baseball, including the Cubs' first-round draft pick. We're going to be talking a little Bears, talking a little Blackhawks. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You could see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. Sure, the season is not going on right now, but that shouldn't stop you from heading on over to icehogs.com, getting yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, sign up for season tickets and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Alex, you have been very angry on Twitter this past week.
Oh, really? Have you noticed?
I think you need this. I think you just need to let this all off your chest. I'm going to sit back and just let you vent.
Well, okay. You know, what I really want to talk about, I guess what I could go if you want to talk about venting. We had a 9-game losing streak. Okay. And look, the Cubs are not very good. We get that. They're rebuilding, even though if they don't want to say it, we get that. But man, I'll tell you this. Being at Saturday's game 1 against the Mets this Saturday at Wrigley Field, there was a very, 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 very humble reminder of where this team currently is. Number one, you lost a very winnable game. What else is new? Number two, you lost a very winnable game in extras where you had a man at third, nobody out, and you had 3 anemic at-bats. Again, par for the course. But, Sean, can I ask you this? Did you watch that first game?
I just saw the highlights.
Okay. People heard it on TV, but what people truly didn't get was the experience of being at the stadium. Wrigley Field got taken over by New York Mets fans. There were more "Let's Go Mets" chants at Wrigley Field than there was cheering for the Cubs. This was a 2-1 game going into extra innings. It was a good game. It was back and forth. Good game. It felt like we were at Citi Field. Wrigley Field is not a place that should be getting taken over like that. There had to be, they said the attendance was about 39,000. It was a packed house. It had to be at least 15,000 Mets fans, probably more. The entire Mets dugout section of the lower bowl, it was all Mets fans. All of them. They stood and chanted "Let's Go Mets" over and over throughout the entire game. When they scored their 2 runs, it was louder than when we scored our run. When we got a big strikeout, when we did anything, whenever the Mets did something, it was louder at Wrigley Field for the visiting team. And I get it. It's New York. Mets fans travel decently. Even if the Cubs were good, you'd have a handful of Mets fans there. This was a takeover. And look, if you wanted to talk about the actual ratio of fans, would I say there were physically more Mets fans than Cubs fans there? No. But they made their presence certainly felt more than the Cub fans in their own stadium. And there it went, a 9-game losing streak. Nice rally today to avoid 10 because the Cubs are on the verge of losing 10 straight games. It would have been their 4th double-digit losing streak since mid last year. And look, we knew this wasn't going to be a good year. I just didn't think it would be like this. And it just feels like fans have lost hope. Even though the Cubs have a really good farm system, and by the day, the farm system continues to look better and better. Pete Crow Armstrong hit a double in yesterday's Futures game.
I watched the game this morning.
Yeah, it was impressive too. It was 95 with sink down, or I don't remember exactly. It was in the mid upper 90s, and he slashed it the other way for a double. I mean, Pete Crow Armstrong looks legit. Owen Casey looks great. Jordan Wicks just got promoted. DJ Hirsch just got promoted. Have you seen Jordan Wicks' changeup?
Uh-huh.
It's disgusting. It is so filthy. Christian Hernandez down in rookie ball is mashing. Kevin Alcantara is mashing. The farm looks great, but the hope is not there. Because what I hear, and I'm sure you can agree with this too, is that you hear a lot of the same thing from Cubs fans. They don't trust the ownership to pocket the money that needs to be pocketed and taken out when it needs to be taken out. You know, when I was at Wrigley yesterday, we were walking to the gate. I saw that big ass ugly sports book that they're attaching to the stadium. It looks so stupid.
It does.
Get that bullshit out of here. You're gonna talk about biblical losses, and then you're gonna be building that. And okay, yeah, you know, you got a nice deal in place. It's gonna bring you in some revenue. You're a business person. I get it. But the optics of you on multiple occasions saying how you don't have money and you're the Chicago goddamn Cubs, it's not good optics. I truly don't think the Ricketts understand that the fans don't like that. It's not good to put forth those kind of optics. Like I feel like they're a bit tone deaf in that respect.
They just don't care.
You know, they want their revenue, they want their money, they want their ROIs, and you know, personally, I think the money will be spent when the time comes. I do. I do think they will spend money.
And here's the thing, and it's not because I think the Ricketts care about winning, because it's winning and they're proud of their organization. When the time comes, I think they'll spend, but they will look at it as a return on investment, because when the team wins, they have to win every so often to keep butts in the seats and to keep revenue coming in through advertising and things like that. And so they need to win at some point. So I think they will try and they will spend, but they will look at it as a return on investment rather than investing to win. That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, to kind of echo that, I've always kind of seen it like they don't necessarily don't want to win. If they have the chance to win, they can, but their biggest priority is revenue, winning or not.
Yes. And I'm not saying that they, like, to them, winning a lot of games is fine. They, like, if they win a World Series, all the better, but it's just putting together a playoff season, I think, is fine for them, because then that generates enough excitement to get butts in seats and increase advertising.
Well, and you know, here's the thing. I'm sure they want to win. I'm sure they like it much better when they can win. But it's about the ROIs. It's about the revenue first and foremost. Absolutely. That's what it's about. And okay, all right. You want to go through a transition? Okay. You don't want to go balls to the wall with spending money this year. Okay. In a transition year. Okay. But you're still what? Middle of the road in payroll? Considering what kind of team you are. And, to me, this isn't even about the old core, the old regime anymore. I mean, that's in the past. That's done. That's whatever. This isn't even about as much what's happening now. This is about where we're going forward with this. Are you going to pony up the dough when it needs to happen? Because based on what you hear from free agent camps and what you read about, the Cubs aren't the destination they were a few years ago. Remember when they were building up with Theo in 2015 and John Lester was here? All of a sudden, people wanted to come here. They wanted to come here. You think they want to come here now? Money talks, sure, but are they going to talk with their wallets? The Dodgers sure don't seem to be afraid to do that. The Yankees are never afraid to do that. Boston isn't afraid to do that. The Cubs should be part of that four. But what has been consistently the problem over the past 5 years? And maybe 4. They did pony up to Yu Darvish, but since that, those teams spend and the Cubs haven't. I mean, that's why the trust of the fan base needs to come back. Look, this season's lost. We know that. We know that the ultimate goal is to build something sustainable for the long run. That means prospects growing. That means farm development. That means all of that stuff. But it should have never gotten to the point where we are flirting with 100 losses. Being semi-competitive this year should not have negatively impacted the future. It really shouldn't have.
Here's the thing. This MLB is different than NFL. In the NFL, you can quickly rebuild, very quickly. I mean, the Bears basically went down to the studs, and I think it's going to be one bad year under Poles, and then we'll be back competing in the second year. But MLB, it's a much longer process. And with the NFL, you really do have to just suck to completely build up, because there's actually a salary cap. In the major leagues, you can still be paying free agents, and then it's about building up your minor leagues. And the two aren't mutually exclusive. Sure, if you're a small market team, you do need to do that tear down. If you're Pittsburgh and the plan doesn't go as you hoped, you have to tear it down, get your payroll down to nothing, build it back up, and then bring your payroll back up, because you can't afford to. The Cubs should not be in the same conversation as the Royals and the Pirates.
Right. And that's another thing I wanted to bring up really quickly. You saw my tweet yesterday where I kind of gave a little post-game comment, right? Like it was a video.
Yeah.
I had several people saying, well, you're part of the problem because you're still going to games. Show the Ricketts that we don't care because if we don't go to games. Well, you and I have discussed
What's that. Wait, what is that voice?
I don't know. I just did it. That's what Craig Krenzel sounds like in your nightmares. I'm Craig Krenzel.
I'm going to throw for 74 yards and 3 interceptions.
What is he, like a pirate or something? Yarg.
He's Krenzy Kruger.
That's wonderful. But, you and I have admittedly discussed that, right? Empty seats, blah, blah, blah. We discussed it, but I thought about it. And you just brought up the Oakland A's and the Pittsburgh Pirates, right?
I brought Kansas City in the Pirates, but yeah.
Kansas City.
Same ilk.
Right. Same. Haven't been shown up for years. What difference has that made?
None.
It hasn't. And the Cubs still have all the media and the sports book and all in the neighborhood and the whole revenue stream coming in. If it's not going to make a difference for the Pittsburgh Pirates, it's sure as hell not going to make a difference to the Chicago Cubs if you see a few more empty seats at Wrigley Field. We've talked about it. We've kind of put this forth as a thought, but I think the more you and I think about it, let's be real.
It's here's the fact of that statement is sports is becoming increasingly less reliant on butts in the seats.
Yes, it is.
TV revenue is king. And NFL could have no fans and they're fine because they make so much money off on television.
Right.
Baseball still relies on concessions and ticket sales, but not to the same extent. So, when you're Oakland or Kansas City or Pittsburgh and you're not drawing, your payroll is still low. It doesn't matter. You can live off of TV revenue that you're going to get. The Cubs still get butts in the seats because there's always going to be people that come into town in the summer in Chicago, and their number one on their bucket list of things to do is to go to Wrigley Field. And I'm sure people that come into town and like, I got to go to a Cubs game. It's just kind of a thing. And there's always going to be butts in the seats. Sure, when they're real bad on Tuesday nights when it's a little overcast, there may not be, nearly as many, but find me a nice weather Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I will show you a packed stadium, no matter how many losses there are. Just the way it is. And the sports book, they have their own television network. This is a big market. It's just the Cubs are going to make money. They're going to make money. And if you don't go to the games, then somebody else will.
Right. Like a ton of Mets fans.
Yes.
People are getting mad. Look at all those people in the seats. Half of them are Mets fans, man.
It's just really frustrating. And, this organization should... The Dodgers, the Red Sox, the Cubs, and the Yankees should never be terrible.
The Yankees never are terrible. Like a bad year for them is like 85 wins.
And that's the way it should be, because you should spend money. Spend money. It's not like it impacts your minor leagues. Sure, you'll have worse draft picks, but baseball is such a crapshoot anyway.
It is. And look, it's good that we have a system that has talent that's growing. It's good that there should be financial flexibility going forward. This season really, outside of watching some of the key guys, there's really nothing to watch at this point.
No, I mean,
it just sucks. It has to be this bad.
It's just the way it is. And I mean, this week, I mean, remember it was not that long ago that we had won 4 series in a row. And then suddenly now it's lost to Baltimore, lost to the Mets, finally beating the Mets. We have 1 win this week. 1 win. And they find different ways to lose, and it's frustrating, and really the only thing to do is to be like, all right, well, come on, Pete Crow Armstrong. When is Brennan Davis going to be healthy? We're just sitting there waiting for, it feels like 2013, 2014 era, where we're like, all right, let's just keep our eye on the minors.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to watch in multiple levels. I mean, there's guys in Myrtle Beach, there's guys in South Bend, now Tennessee. A lot of the guys are going up to Tennessee. I mentioned Jordan Wicks, I mentioned DJ Hurst. Those are 2 real key guys to keep your eye on in Tennessee. Right now, South Bend really's got a lot of the good talent there. You got Pico Armstrong as one of those guys there. And watch other guys too, like Kevin Made or Jordan Wogu. And boy, I can't wait to see Christian Hernandez finally make his way up to low A ball. I think that's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. And we think about all the talent that we're watching and we're excited about. And Ed Howard and Brennan Davis, who were probably two of the ones we were most excited about to watch a year ago, are injured. You add those guys in the fold and suddenly you're like, okay, all right.
And there's real good news with Miguel Amaya and Brennan Davis. It ain't all lost. That they're coming back, man. And I mean, they are not just done for the season after it looked like they were going to be. It's the news with both of them is really, really good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really, the only one that you don't know what the hell's going on with is Braylon Marquez.
Yeah. But I mean, honestly, you have to be pretty excited. And the thing is we said this when the Cubs were bringing guys up. There's guys that you're excited about that aren't going to pan out to be the guys you thought. And we said that with the White Sox too. Like, listen, there's guys that we're excited about and the hit rate isn't going to be 100%. And both
never is.
And both teams had pretty good success with their hit rate with guys that went from being good minor leaguers to good pros. But you need a little bit of luck and a lot of work with your coaching staff to make that jump, as well as the talent that they have. And we're seeing the talent right now. Now it's up to the Cubs to put in the coaching staff to put in that work to get them ready to go to the next level. And, we need the baseball gods on our side with no injuries, but it's been exciting. It's been fun. And I wish the Marquee Network would just play minor league games. You own those clubs. Why can't you play the games? You own the clubs. You own the network. Why can't you play the games?
Yeah. I mean, they play some, but it'd be nice if they could do a little more. Now, granted, they do have the Chicago Sky now, so it might be a scheduling thing, but I still think they could squeeze in a few more.
But yeah,
show some South Bend games.
I don't even need to see them live. Like, honestly, I'd probably rather watch them taped, and watch it.
That's true. Good point.
I mean, you can stream it on. I mean, they have a Marquee app. Stream the games. Either play the games on your network, the actual cable network, off hours if it's a scheduling thing, and on your app, play them on demand. Like they do at Peacock does with the Olympics. I can go back in there and watch. I could watch. Oh, you know what? I saw that Pico Armstrong hit a home run last week. Let me pull up that game and watch it. Like, put them on demand. Like,
people would watch it. People would absolutely watch it. And if you want to market your future better, that's a way to do it. That is a way to do it.
Yeah. And that's what, it's what I say about boxing is to promote boxing better, have people learn who the young stars are early. So that way, as they progress and get better, people get excited and know more of the players involved. Same thing with your rebuild of the Cubs is get people excited about the people that are coming. If they don't know who these players are, you go to an average Cubs game, just like, your average baseball fan, and they probably don't know 3/4 or 80% or more of these minor league players. And so when they bring them up, like, all right, who's this? Who's that? You have to, if you want to build excitement to make us live through 100-loss season, you gotta give us something to be excited about. You have to give us that product. Don't just be like, oh, well, we're going to be good in a couple of years. Make us believe that. Give us Pete Crow Armstrong. Give us Kevin Alcantara. Let us see. Let us watch.
Well, yeah, here's the other thing too, is that there are a lot of fans that aren't on Twitter that aren't constantly following the prospect accounts or, even the minor league accounts for these guys, or the ones for the teams. There's a lot of different outlets you can look on Twitter to follow these minor leaguers, but a lot of people who watch, they don't necessarily have Twitter, so they don't have the exposure to this. Giving them the exposure on the marquee network obviously would provide that for a bigger demographic of people.
Yeah. You know what? During rain delays, just play highlights of, hey, this is who you're going to see. These are our star players. This is the future of the Cubs. These are the names you're going to see when the Cubs win their next World Series. That's what I want.
Right.
It's like they don't know how to interact with the fans and give the fans what they want.
Exactly. I think that if you're going to be bad, marketing has to look at these kinds of things, because people still go to Wrigley Field. Clearly, it was Wrigley Field and WGN that keeps the fans around for so long, for all those terrible years. You don't have WGN anymore. Wrigley Field is a lot more expensive to go to now. The average Joe isn't as willing to pay for $13 beers and, all that stuff, and the parking. And, it's different than it was in the 80s and the 90s when the team was very, very bad. So you got to adapt with the times. And, you realize now that a lot of baseball fans, they want the more in-depth stuff, whether it's stats, whether it's farm system, any of that stuff. That's what they want. If you're not going to give them a winning team, give them the other things they want.
Right. Absolutely. There's another topic I wanted to bring up.
Mm-hmm.
So this stemmed from the report of Juan Soto rejecting a $440 million extension. And there's talks now of him being traded. And the Cubs were named by multiple people as a top landing spot for Soto. What are your thoughts on it? And
via trade?
Yes.
Are we really going to mortgage our entire future for one player?
That's what I said. I had a long talk with Gary today. I was talking with him on the phone, and I was like, I'm like, would I like to have him on the team? Absolutely, because he is arguably the best hitter in baseball at 23 years old. He's fantastic. Matt Fielder, but he is at the plate is fantastic. He can alter your team, but I'm not willing to mortgage the future on him, especially when I think, I haven't looked it up, but I think they've got control of him the rest of this year and next year, and then he's a free agent, I believe. But you would have to extend him. You're looking at $500 million to extend him or more. And, and on top of giving up a ton of the farm system to do it, then are you any better off than you are right now?
And before people say, what do you mean you wouldn't want a top tier talent like Juan Soto? Of course I do. Of course I do. But you're not a winning team right now. You're trying to build within your system, and and then don't be all, well, if you think that Pico Armstrong is going to be as good, we don't have any proof of these prospects. I'm not saying that either.
No, but if Pico Armstrong, if you have I'm just going to say, if you have to trade like 4 of your top 10 farm system players to get him, those four guys probably make it to the major league level. You're making the team as a whole worse, even though that one position will be a lot better. It's a team game. You have to have a team around you. You can't just win with Juan Soto, or otherwise the Nationals would be winning. So it's you have to have a team around him. Now, if they were like, you know what, there's no market for him and they know they're going to lose him anyway, and let's just say you could somehow work a three-way trade. You trade Wilson Contreras, who you're planning to trade anyway, for these two prospects who will go to the Nationals, and then you throw in one of your top minor league prospects along with whatever you got from Wilson Contreras and bring back Juan Soto. All in for it. But I can't empty the farm system for him. I can't do it.
Yeah, I would die to have a guy like Juan Soto on my team. If he was a free agent and all cost you was money and you're on the verge of contending, I'd say do what you can to get here. But that's not the case.
Yeah, if it was just money, you're like, all right, well, I don't care. Pay him the most money. He's 23 years old. Yeah. You can give him a 15-year contract, and by the end of it, he'll still be okay. So
give him the sportsbook revenue for all I care.
Yeah. Is give him the money. If it was just money, throw every monies at him, all the monies. But since you have to trade for him, unless that market is real weak, there's no way I trade the farm system for him, because then you're still gonna have to pay him a ton of money and you're weakening the entire team as a whole.
Exactly.
Because if you're going to pay him $40 million a year for 15 years, they're going to cry poverty.
Right.
So while I would absolutely love to have him on this team, it just doesn't seem a realistic possibility at this point in time. Unless things just get real ugly and they're going to part ways with him, but I don't see that happening.
I mean, I think he's doing it because he wants out of DC.
Yes.
That team is pretty bad.
Yeah. And, because $440 million is a lot of money. That would be the single biggest contract in the history of sports, or I'm sorry, in the history of baseball. And what's funny though, is in one of the articles I read about it was named the White Sox as another potential landing spot. And I'm like, ain't no way. Ain't no effing way. The White Sox aren't going to pony up their prospects for him.
What the
and
hell
number two,
the trade for him?
And number two, yeah, they don't have enough to trade for him. And number two is the White Sox have never given up $100 million contract to anybody. So why in the world would they're not bringing him in? It's not going to be a White Sox move.
No. I mean, it's Juan Soto in Chicago is only a thing when the Nationals or whatever team he ends up on plays the Cubs or the White Sox.
Yeah. And if they trade him, it's going to be an off-season trade. I don't think he's going to be a trade deadline piece.
I'd be pretty surprised if he was.
Yeah, they're going to still try to work something out.
No, you know what's going to happen, right? You know what's going to happen. The Cardinals are going to trade a pack of gum and some cigarettes for him.
That would be so angering. Like,
they already got Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt for jack squat.
I would lose my mind.
I will never not be salty about that. Freaking bullcrap.
And since the last time we talked, last episode we were like, oh, Ian Happ deserves to be an all-star. Don't think he'll make it. And here we are. Ian Happ, all-star.
He's an all-star. He is very deserving.
Yes,
of
absolutely.
This all-star nod. he has consistently got on base. He's hit. He's cut down on the strikeouts. And even if his power is diminishing, he's exchanging that with singles, doubles, and more walks. He was already really good at drawing walks. He had a good eye on the pitch outside the strike zone, but he's making more of the pitches in the strike zone, and he's, seems to be shortening up a little bit and electing for more singles and doubles. And he's hitting a decent amount of doubles. It's not like he's just dinking and dunking. He's just hitting the ball within the park in different areas. And his improvement from the right side of the plate, marvelous.
Yeah, he's so deserving of it. I just didn't think that he would be recognized.
Right.
It's kind of like Roquan Smith is deserving to be all pro. He just not voted to be all pro.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. So it was a pleasant surprise, and I'm happy for him. Because that's
for once we get
deal.
A pleasant surprise.
Yeah. So we've got 2 all-stars, Wilson Contreras and the Happer. But going into all-star game, the Cubs are just a half a game ahead of the lowly Cincinnati Reds to be at the bottom of the division, which
the team
is really
that started
sad.
3-22.
Yeah. And if you take out those first, 25 games, the Reds are a better team than us. Period.
Yuck.
And honestly, I don't think next year is going to be any better.
I think it'll be better. I don't think it'll be contending yet.
No, but will they be better? They'll be closer to where they want to be.
Well, I'll tell you what, they better make some moves this offseason. They better bring in more legit talent.
Okay. So, I mean, this is the way, way early preview. What moves do you make?
Go after Turner. Trey Turner, Xander Bogaerts, one of those guys. Go after him.
Okay, so you bring in a top tier shortstop, and then you move Nico Horner to second, right?
Good plan.
Okay. What do you do about first base?
That is something I've been racking my brain about. That's kind of a hole right now. A noticeable hole.
I agree.
My crazy idea, I don't know how well it would work. Honestly, I don't know if it would work at all, but I did once have this idea. Hey, keep Wilson Contreras around and maybe move him to first base a little bit.
I was going to say that, but that would involve you keeping him at the deadline and extending him.
Or you trade him
and then
you resign him.
As much as
I don't think it's going to happen.
As much as I would like that, I don't see that happening. That's such a rare move. But it would be a cool trivia piece. Is like if you had a player like Wilson Contreras and he plays his entire career with the Cubs,
except for 2 months.
Except for 2 months during one season.
Cubs / Mets. Cubs.
He goes to the Yankees, wins a World Series, comes back to the Cubs. But I don't see that happening. I mean, but that would be a possibility. To have him playing a little first base.
And I've talked about
platooning.
Right. And I've talked about Alfonso Rivas in the past, and he's been kind of up and down this year. I think with him, at best, he's probably a platoon player, not an everyday first baseman.
Yeah, I would agree. Third base, I think you could live with Patrick Wisdom there another year.
I've always said good things about Pat. I mean, not always, but I've liked Patrick Wisdom for who he is, the power he provides. He's big strikeouts, but what he does is yada yada. But do I mind him being on the roster? No, not at all. But I don't know if I want him to be everyday third baseman, or at least maybe, use him in other roles. I don't know. But then again, I mean, how do you fix it? Unless let's say Correa opts out and you land Correa and you put him at third and you have Nico at short,
Or you sign Correa and like a Bogarts, and you figure out third, short, and second in one fell swoop.
Well, that would be great, but I think Tom Ricketts is getting the meat sweats hearing that.
But I mean, here's my thing about Wisdom is I think next year is not going to be I don't think it's going to be, I mean, obviously it can't be a worse record than this year, but I think it's not going to be terribly competitive next year. Maybe in a best case scenario, we're breathing down the necks of second place in the division.
Behind you, Cardinals.
But is
it Gallagher way?
you can live with Patrick Wisdom one more year. That's just my thoughts. Is you're not going to go out and fix every single hole. Your minor league roster is really staggered. You're not going to have a whole crop of minor leaguers come up to fix the issues. Like, I mean, that kind of worked out for the Cubs that won the World Series. They had a lot of guys come up pretty much at once for the most part.
Right, exactly. This isn't as linear. This is nowhere near as linear as that. And I think that the two main concerns I have is one, okay, I'll say three. One, it's not as linear, as we just said. Two, alluded to what we just talked about, first and third. Your main building blocks were first and third with Brian and Rizzo, two of the premier positions of a baseball team. And they don't really have that. The closest you have to potential third is James Triantos. You're not going to see James Triantos for another 4 years.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. You like it's a double-edged sword, the way that this Cubs minor league roster is set up, or this farm system is set up. It's good in that you're going to have guys come up in waves, but it's bad because you're going to have guys come up in waves over years. It's good. It's good from a planning perspective, but it's bad when you're trying to just get better quickly. If everybody was coming up in next year, you're like, all right, well, let's just bring the kids up and let them play. But, Wicks you'll have up next year, maybe Brennan Davis.
If Caleb Killian can figure out his command.
Yeah. So you're at best 3. I mean, I'm sure you'll see some more come up, to fill in holes here and there, but
you won't see Pete Crow Armstrong. You won't see Owen Casey. You won't see Christian Hernandez. You won't see James Triantos.
No, you won't see Alcantara. You won't, these are guys you won't see. You won't see Ed Howard. You won't see.
Maybe we'll see a Kevin Motti.
Yeah. So at best you'll see 2 or 3 of these guys. So you need to fill holes with veterans. And I'm just saying is for the production that Patrick Wisdom gives you, you're not going to be able to go without and sign for a reasonable contract that same player. You're going to have to sign somebody for a bigger deal, a much, much bigger deal to give you the better production. So while you're not competing for a World Series, just let him ride it out. Fill the other holes.
Well, and here's another thing to your point about this not being linear and guys coming up at other points. If you turn into something within a few years, I mean, let's be real. If you look at all these prospects, they continue to develop and they continue to have value. Some of these guys are going to be trade bait at some point.
Yeah.
We know that.
Yeah. Especially as you start getting log jam, because at some point, that you're going to have one of these players comes up, takes the reins of that spot on the major league level. And a player is going to have to either learn a new position or get traded away when they're log jammed. Just a fact.
Right. Right. I mean, look at the 2016 Cubs. Gleyber Torres for Oldest Chapman. And you made other trades that I don't really want to revisit right now. But you know the point. You know the point that I'm getting.
Yeah, but I mean, Gleyber Torres was log jammed because you're like, okay, well, Addison Russell is holding down this spot. And then we didn't have a crystal ball to realize that Addison Russell, as his spousal abuse powers grew, that his baseball power shrank.
And he's dog turd tacos.
Absolutely, dog turd tacos.
In more ways than one.
So, but that's the kind of the thing. And so I mean, your outfield, Suzuki and Hap are probably your locks. Your outfield is going to be okay. Wherever Nico Horner plays, short or second, you're okay. If you do sign a shortstop, all right, then that covers short and second now. And you need to figure out a catcher. And then pitching. That roster there, it's not terrible, but you're going to live and die by your pitching. And I just don't know what you're going to get for that rotation for next year.
Yeah, I mean, I think two real keys is the positive development of Jordan Wicks and Caleb Killian. And you're obviously going to sign a few guys, whether big or small.
Probably
Kyle
small.
Hendricks is going to be there. I mean, we know that.
Kyle Hendricks is your 4 or 5.
Marcus Stroman should be there. I don't think he's being traded this year.
No, he's not good enough to trade. So he'll be there.
His 2 starts coming back, I'll say he's looked pretty good in the limited pitching,
still not good enough to.
Oh, I know that. I'm not saying he's not good enough to trade. I'm just saying it's a good sign for him and the Cubs.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, he was hurt for how long?
I know.
Quite a while.
So you've got Stroman. You'll have, I mean, Keegan Thompson. We've seen ups and downs, but I think we've seen way more ups than downs.
Absolutely.
So I expect him to be in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
Steele, I think we've seen more downs than ups, but I'm hopeful that we see in the second half of the season start seeing the reversal where more ups than downs.
It's the consistency, I think, with him.
Yeah.
Because when he's been good, he's been good.
Yeah. The stuff is there. Just there has to be some consistency. Like it's like Leiter has put every so often had a decent pitching outing, but you don't feel confident in him long term. Steele, you watch and you're like, all right, I see something there. I'm cautiously optimistic that he can be a decent pitcher for this team. It's just you've gotta put it all together.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, it would be nice if they brought in another big time pitcher that could really change the trajectory of this.
Bring in Lon Jester.
On the other side of town, though, the White Sox had a big opportunity to be able to make some big headways in the division. And I would say it could have been better, but you can't complain too much about it.
Could have been a lot worse. I mean, the series against the Twins, I thought went superb for them. Outside the one game, they hit and hit and hit, and they pitched well. And they're only 3 games back. They're right back in it.
Yeah, they're right back in it.
It shows you how winnable this is still.
Yeah, they took 2 or 3 from Cleveland. which is good. Took 3 of 4 from the Twins, real good. And you made up some ground. You go into All-Star game 500, only 3 games out of first. That has to make you feel a lot better about things as you start. That's, it's not really the halfway point, but the arbitrary halfway point of the season, the All-Star break.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Sox a week ago from when we were talking, people were talking about selling at the deadline. And I always thought that was kind of crazy talk. I mean, the division is so winnable. You haven't sunk yourself. You haven't propelled yourself yet, but you're staying right there in it. And that series against the Twins, that was a season saver. If they would have lost 3 or 4, we might be having a different conversation. But we saw 2 big things this weekend. One, the Sox can still hit. They got boppers. Yoel Moncada is killing the ball again. If he's killing the ball again, then I think that perfectly sets you up for making a run at the postseason. And I don't think the Twins are that good. They got some good players, but when you're relying on Chris Archer and some of those other arms that they have, that's not intimidating to me. It's really not. Honestly, part of me would be a bit more worried about Cleveland. And I don't even think Cleveland's that good yet, but they got some nice pieces there.
Yeah, they're a better team, but I don't think they're anything to worry about this season.
Right. I know. I agree. I'm just saying they might make it tougher on you.
The White Sox should be able to still win this division. But again, they're winning despite their manager. They're still putting Lurie Garcia in there, and he's terrible. Like, Josh Harrison's finally starting to come around and hit a little bit.
Yes, he is.
And right now, the currently at-bats, Lurie has 229 at-bats on the season. Josh Harrison has 207. So fairly comparable number of at-bats. The batting average, 232 to 205, is a little bit of an advantage to Harrison. The on-base percentage, 304 to 232. Significant advantage, Josh Harrison. The slugging, 367 to 262. Significant better. OPS, I can't read my own handwriting, 671 to 494. Like, why are you still playing Lurie Garcia?
Because Tony La Russa has naked pics on him. Or no, he's got naked pics on Tony La Russa. Sorry. I mixed that up. That makes me want a Buffalo Bill fan puke thinking about it. But why are you still like Lurie Garcia is still making bad errors? He's not hitting. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't. And, obviously you need to take every game you can. And the other nice thing is at least guys like Adam Engel are stepping up, because Luis Robert has been out with lightheadedness. He came out early in one game and then missed the next game. So you had to replace that. And Adam Engel ended up hitting a home run. And then, pretty much everyone outside of Lurie Garcia is stepping up. I mean, Jose Abreu's been on a tear since his slow start. I mean, over the past, 2 months, he's been one of the best productive hitters in baseball. That's made a difference. You got Eloy banged up again. That's not the most ideal, but hey, they scored a shit ton of runs without him. And again, big difference when Yoel Moncada is hitting. That's one of your X factors. If he's hitting again, you're going to win a lot more ball games. If he hits in the second half, you're going to win the division. Because here is the thing. Their schedule is very light in the second half. Very, very light. And hopefully for them, they realize that winning the division first is important. But you still do need to do things, regardless if you win the division or not, for now and going forward. You need to shore up a few things going forward if you want to go anywhere in the postseason. You need another starting pitcher. I think that's a must. You have to have another starting pitcher. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Like, I don't even think that's a debate anymore, because Dylan Cease is incredible. It's amazing he's not an all-star. He's arguably one of the bigger Cy Young contenders in the AL. Johnny Cueto just kind of goes out there and gets good results. Giolito has been pretty rocky, but at least lately he's been a little better. You need some consistency there. But, ever since the injury to Kopech, he's been meh. And
he had his last outing was good.
It was fine. I mean, I don't think it was very deep, but it was better than other ones.
5 1/3, gave up 2 runs. It's a lot better than it has been. But
right. But overall, it's been meh.
Lance Lynn, since he's returned, has been garbagey.
Yeah, and that's the biggest point of concern. And it's not like he's just getting unlucky. The velocity and movement's way down. I mean, because he usually threw 94, 95. Now he's 91, 92. It may seem like not much of a difference, but that makes a difference.
It does.
When you're older and you have an injury, maybe he rebounds in the second half. Maybe he needs a little rest, but it hasn't been good so far. So you need some reinforcements in there. And I don't want to make this sound like I'm disrespecting Johnny Cueto in any way, because he's done more than what we could possibly imagine. I just don't think you want to be relying on Johnny Cueto being one of your big X factors going into a postseason series at this point of his career.
This Johnny Cueto story has been real nice, but I think it's a little bit of a mirage. And
yeah,
you can't, if you put him in a postseason series, the wheels are going to come off real quick. He's been a nice story. He has been a huge part in helping you get to this point, but I don't want to rely on him when it counts.
Yeah, I mean, his command's been fine. That's all been fine. His fielding independent pitching, his ERA is really good, 280. Really, really good. His FIP is 397. Not bad. Not bad at all. It's pretty good, but you look at the difference between the ERA and the FIP, and someone that's doesn't not miss bats at all, but doesn't miss a ton of bats. It just, with a guy at that age and his recent injury issues he's had, you ride with him while you can, but I wouldn't want him to be my 2 or 3 starter going to postseason series. I would want a Dylan Cease as a 1, a Giolito, a healthy better Lance Lynn, in either a Kopech or some guy you bring in. You have Cueto as depth on the team, pitching depth. There's no problem with that. I wouldn't want to rely on him as being a starter in a postseason series, especially if your back is against the wall.
Right. I want to talk quickly. We skimmed over the draft, and while we're recording this, the White Sox have not drafted yet, but the Cubs have. But it's amazing how many kids are getting drafted in this draft. Matt Holliday's son went number 1.
I just realized that was his son.
Yeah. Carl Crawford's son just got drafted just a minute ago. Andrew Jones' son was drafted.
The big one.
So you're like, man. And the Cubs, the kid that I thought they could realistically get was Elijah Green, the outfielder out of IMG Academy. He ended up going 5th. I thought he could be a great one for the Cubs, but he went 5th, and I'm like, okay, the way this is shaping up, I expected them to draft the catcher from Georgia Tech, and the Cubs went with Cade Horton, who was ranked the 25th to 30th best prospect. And during the draft, they said that he was the best pitcher, the best college pitcher in the draft. But I'm still not sold on him.
Here's the thing. I've heard some good things from experts. I've read some good things before the show. As we were getting ready, I saw some praise. He throws hard, upper 90s. He already had Tommy John surgery, looked really good in the College World Series. At the end of the day, it's hard for me to have immediate reactions to baseball drafts because you're not going to see them for another 5 years.
Well, I mean, when you draft a college pitcher, that track to
okay, maybe not that long for this type of guy. Yes, maybe 3 years, 2 or 3.
I mean, he might be up next year. You never know.
I don't know about that. I'm not sure it's gonna be that quick.
I mean, because the college pitchers seem to have a fast track to coming to the pro, or much more than any other.
No, you're
group.
right. Yes, for this particular case, you're right. I was saying in general, when you get like position players, it's a few years. I mean, sure, college is quicker because they have a pedigree. You're absolutely right. And it could be a shorter amount of time for a college pitcher. But I think from what we're seeing is that there's going to be some work they're going to need to do. It's a big gamble, but it's not like we're going to see him on the opening day roster next year.
No, I don't think so. But I would not be surprised if he was a late season call up next year and then on the roster the following year.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's possible. I'm just going to let this one play out. I mean, the other thing I will say too is, I get people's opinion. They're like, well, I don't know about drafting this position. I don't think drafting positions in baseball is nearly as big of a deal as it is in the NFL or the NBA or even the NHL.
No, it's not. I mean, you just
I see no harm in building up.
Yeah,
pitching.
but we saw a definite seismic shift at the end of the Theo era of going all pitchers because they had no pitchers in the minors. And they were like, all right, we've got to build that up. It was like a complete shift. But other than that, it's, you look at the draft and you identify traits because you're drafting. I mean, some of these kids are 17, 18 years old that are being drafted, 18 years old. Like you're projecting them years out. You're projecting somebody in that's a child, and them when they become a man, that's a tough transition. I mean, it's NFL, you're expecting all of these players day one to come in and compete for a job. NBA,
right.
For first rounders, they better come competing for a job. But NHL and MLB, you're drafting kids to come in a couple of years. And that is a much more nuanced and evaluation, like it's hard enough evaluating college football to the pros, and they're 1 season away. You are just a few months away. You're like, okay, you played in January, and in July, you played in a bowl game in January, and in July, you're going to be in a training camp ready to go. Like you're projecting somebody 8 months out.
Right.
And that's hard. To project somebody from high school to all through the minors and into the majors when they're 18 years, like that's hard. So it's a lot more of a crapshoot, and a lot of things can happen wrong or right in those years. And so I'm not, it's tough to shit on a baseball or hockey draft pick. I mean, look, everybody wanted Mark Appel over Chris Bryant.
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever downs Chris Bryant has had over the last couple of years, he's still infinitely better of a career than Mark Appel.
I mean, we would take that 10 times out of 10.
Yeah. Is, no matter what happens going forward, 10 times out of 10, you are drafting. If you could go back and redraft, you're taking Chris Bryant over Mark Appel. That's a fact.
Yeah.
So it's it's one of those things. It's like we as fans can read some things and say, oh yeah, we're not happy about this. And going by what other people's opinions are, the Cubs reached here. But I mean, if he's a guy that they think is a fast track to the majors and he's a power arm, they could use that, then okay, I will give the benefit of the doubt to Jed Hoyer and keep my fingers crossed on this.
Yeah, just see how it plays out.
The White Sox have not drafted yet. So next week we can talk whoever the White Sox draft and whatever the Cubs draft after this first pick. I think their next pick is like 40 something, 47.
Something like that.
Is there any more baseball you wanted to talk?
No, I think I've talked enough about baseball today.
I do have a few football things I want to talk about. I recognize that my expectations for the 2022 Chicago Bears and your expectations for the Chicago Bears in 2022 are different. And we could probably sum them up as one of them sounds like this. And the other one sounds like this. Clink, 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 clink.
Yeah.
Which is fair. Which is absolutely fair. Is you are less positive about the Bears than I am. And I'm going to temper my expectations, even though I'm drinking Kool-Aid. Is
clink, 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 clink.
I'm saying is I think they will be better than the experts think they will be. I don't think they will be competitive as far as the Super Bowl goes, but I think they will be much more competitive on the field. And the record may not be great, but I think that the actual games on Sunday are going to be like, even if you beat the Bears, I don't think anybody's going to be like, yeah, I'm glad to see the Bears on the schedule. I think they're going to be tougher than people are expecting, but the record may not be that great. I am expecting a 6 to 8 win season. But Keyshawn Johnson not only went out there and said that this is like the worst roster he's ever seen, but he also said the Bears don't even have 2 or 3 players that could start on another team. And that is just factually ridiculous.
I think it's Sean's turn to rant now.
I mean, like, it's one thing to have an opinion. It's another thing to say things that are factually stupid. And Keyshawn Johnson went and he measured himself. He walked up to that line and he checked that line, made sure it was regulation. All right, this is a regulation line right here. And he took about 8 steps back and got a running start and just hurtled that line into the stupid territory. And because Roquan Smith is arguably the best inside linebacker in football. Is it, am I wrong in saying that?
He's one of them.
Yeah, he's one of the best. So
you are sweating meatball sauce right now, aren't you?
I'm trying to be realistic here. I'm not going to go out there and be like, oh, Whitey Coathair could start on most teams. Like, okay, maybe he could, maybe he couldn't. I'm not going to argue that one. But Roquan Smith absolutely could start for any team in this league. Any team.
Absolutely.
Even if it's a team that has one of the guys on the same tier as him, you put both of them there and your team is really good. Darnell Mooney, in number of receptions and number of yards, was a top 20 receiver, and he's getting better. And that was in a Matt Nagy offense. He could start for, other than maybe the Rams, he could probably start for any team in the league. He is an excellent wide receiver. Robert Quinn, in the storied franchise of the Chicago Bears as the stalwarts of defense, he holds the single season sack record, which he got last year. And you're telling me that he can't start anywhere? Like, there's 3 right there without even batting an eye. So what is Keyshawn Johnson smoking? I get when you're a talking head, you need your name circulating, but to just say stupid stuff, I mean, I guess it's working for Herschel Walker, which, if you haven't heard Herschel Walker lately,
nah, not really. No,
you should Google him. He's got some doozies.
Do I?
Oh, it is Marjorie Taylor Greene level stupid. But Keyshawn Johnson, it just factually wrong. From there, all right, could any other Bears wide receiver start somewhere else? I'm sure they could, but I'm not going to make that argument. Jalen Johnson, could he start anywhere else in the league? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Could Eddie Jackson start elsewhere in the league? Absolutely. He has been down, but he has been a great there's points where he was one of the best safeties in football. Let's see what he does with a better defense. I won't even say anything about the 2 rookie defensive backs because we haven't seen them play yet.
And it's funny because I think me, I've been a lot more down on the Bears than you have. But one thing I think I am feeling really good about is Jaquan Brisker. I think he's going to be really good.
Jaquan Brisker is going to be very good. And the cornerback's going to be very good too, if he's healthy.
Yes.
I think our defensive backfield is going to be pretty solid this year, both from the scheme and the players within the scheme. The linebacking core, I think, will be fine. The big question mark on defense for me, will they be able to generate enough consistent pressure to make to give the defensive backs the opportunity to jump routes and take more risks? If Robert Quinn puts anything up a season like he did last year, and Trevis Gibson takes that step forward, this could be a pretty darn good defense. I think teams will be able to run on them. I think the loss of some of the guys on defense as far as run stopping is going to hurt the Bears, but I think they're going to be a lot better as a pass defense.
Yeah, and I mean, think about it. Those defenses in Indianapolis, they didn't sack the quarterback. That wasn't the type of defense they were. They won it in other ways, and secondary was one. And it makes sense with what they have right now, considering that you greatly improved your defensive backs and you really haven't done much on your defensive line. Obviously, the Larry Ogunjobi thing fell apart. That would have been a big move, but I mean, it's if it works, it works. And we've seen Indy's defense work pretty well with that different type of philosophy than what we've been used to seeing here.
Right. And honestly, it would be nice if we get consistent pass rush, even if it's not causing the quarterback to rush throws. If the defensive scheme and the defensive back players are in position and causing receivers to not get open, and it's causing coverage sacks, like that's a good symbiotic relationship of the defensive backs are good enough to allow you to get coverage sacks, and the defensive linemen are good enough to rush the passer to cause passes to be thrown quicker. If you've got both of those working together, your defense is just going to go sky high. That's the hope. I'm a believer in this style of defense, but going back to Keyshawn Johnson, we just easily named 4 players that could start, probably 5 right off the bat that could start on another team. We didn't even mention David Montgomery, who is an excellent back. And I will even say Cody Whitehair probably could start for a lot of teams in the league. He's a middle of the road guard, and you have 2 guards on every team. So yeah, most teams could probably use him. And Justin Fields is, that's a harder one to sell other people outside of Chicago, who lovingly refer to him as Bustin' Fields. But I think after the season, people are going to be like, damn, I underestimated Justin Fields.
I hope. I overall liked the approach of the draft by Ryan Poles. We've talked about it. You're trading back, you stock up more draft capital, more prospects than having to fill the roster up with, practice squad guys, whatever. I mean, that's all fine and good.
Right.
Man, you couldn't have gotten another receiver and another O-lineman somehow, whether it was the draft, whether it was free agency. Why, if you're going to develop your quarterback, give him something.
You just got him another wide receiver. N'Keal Harry.
Whoop-de-doo.
All right. Here's my, so.
Breathe in, meatball. Breathe out, meatball.
I want to get more to Darnell Mooney in a minute, but all right, you've got Darnell Mooney. You drafted Velus Jones, who is, I think, going to be used situationally and have packages for him. I think
which isn't a bad thing.
I think he's going to play more regularly, but there's going to be Velus Jones packages that are going to, if you give him any amount of space, teams are going to go, uh-oh, because he is fast. I think I've watched a lot of Byron Pringle film, and I think people are going to be pleasantly surprised with what they see from him. And I don't think your depth is there. Like Equanimous St. Brown is a meh. I think his worth is going to be that he knows this offensive system and the verbiage that's used. But I think you're going to see him be higher up the depth chart and then sort of drop down once others start learning the system more as training camp goes on. But I think you will probably see him higher up in the depth chart earlier on than you would have, because he knows the system. But the Bears have a lot of meh guys, but I think that Pringle, Velus Jones, and Darnell Mooney are going to surprise people. The problem is that there's no depth on that roster. And, I just half joked about the N'Keal Harry trade. Was it the right move? Sure. You traded for a guy that was a first round pick a couple years ago for a seventh round pick in 2 years. They essentially,
the trade was fine. Yeah, absolutely.
They essentially gave him to you for nothing.
Yeah.
And he makes like 1.7 or 1.8 million dollars, which is, compared to how much they have, is a drop in the bucket. And it's not even guaranteed. So if you cut him, all right, you get that money back. But it's go back and watch the footage of N'Keal Harry in college. And that guy didn't forget how to play football. I'm hoping a change of scenery. Am I expecting miracles from N'Keal Harry? No. Am I expecting better production than we saw out of him in New England? Yes. So this is a guy that does have experience. He's played on a winning organization. I watched a guy that, all right, was he the fastest? No. But the guy has a big body, a big catch radius, and in college had impeccable hands. So if you can figure out those things, he can be a nice possession receiver. So I'm not mad about that trade at all. I know a lot of people are like, what are you doing? Like, what harm is it? Like, what were you going to get in a 2024 7th round pick? They'll move back 2 spots in the 6th, and they'll get that net pick back. Who cares?
There was no risk at all to this move.
Yeah, honestly, it is the what was it, David Moore, who was the guy, the Bears guy that got arrested for gun possession.
Which one? Be more specific.
The wide receiver who got busted for
I think that was
weapon
Moore. Because Adams also got busted.
Yeah, but he's a linebacker.
Obviously a defender, right?
Yeah. So yeah, it was Moore. So I think this is a replacement for him if he doesn't ball out, because he's on the shit list. And if he doesn't ball out in training camp, his ass is going to be gone, because they're like, we don't want to put up with that shit. And we've at least got a guy with a couple of years experience that we can replace him with to sit on the bench. But
I like to picture the shit list is like one of those kid scrolls that you take two like paper towel rolls and you tape the paper to it. And they write it down in the purple crayon and they open it. It's just labeled the shit list. Ryan Poles has it in his jacket. He takes it out and unscrolls it.
It's really rolled up 2-ply toilet paper, and he writes it with a poop.
You had to go there. I was being nice and classy with my imagination.
I'm sorry.
You had to
he
go
wrote
there.
it in brown crayon.
I let him borrow it out of my big box. It's got 64 crayons in it and the sharpener in the back.
It's got the box that can open and close, so my crayons don't fall over the place when I put them in my backpack.
See, I pictured George McCaskey, his desk, nice, big, executive-looking desk. It's got all the good desk set stuff that you would see on a 1950s businessman desk. The quill, the ink, the paper, the ruler, all that stuff, and then there's just the big box of crayons.
George picked an obnoxious crayon color and wrote his name on all the antique furniture. George.
Yeah, I told you not to do that.
Sorry, why did you do that? I don't know. I'm not sure. It wasn't me.
Whenever I pick up the crayon, I do things.
But yeah, I mean, look at this wide receiver class that the Bears have. Byron Pringle, who I think is going to impress people. Darnell Mooney, who I think is criminally underrated. Velus Jones Jr., who we shall see. Equanimous St. Brown, who's his worth is he knows the system. You brought in N'Keal Harry. You've got Daz Newsome, who was a rookie last year. Dante Pettis, Tajay Sharp, Chris Finke, and Isaiah Coulter, Nasimba Webster, who they rave about his speed. We shall see if that is impressive in camp. And then David Moore, who is on the poop list.
He's currently on the scroll in brown crayon.
And so I think N'Keal Harry is that insurance policy. Like, David Moore, if you don't ball out in training camp, you are gone. But if he can regain that ability to be a possession receiver, I think he has worth on this team because of his size. And young quarterbacks like having a guy that is a big target and can make those tight receptions. And somebody posted a video of him, N'Keal Harry, in college going up against Thomas Graham, and Thomas Graham was draped all over him on a deep route, and N'Keal Harry still went up and caught the ball. So we've seen these great highlights from college. That guy could still be here. It's not a Kevin White situation where he's just no. He's completely brittle and you can't work with that. So I'm hoping that they can find a way to put him in a position to be a possession receiver, because I think that you could see him be a huge security blanket early on for Justin Fields, because Justin Fields, this is a young quarterback in a new offense. Early on, you're going to see him be a little tentative in it, and you're going to see him dump off to players and throw those into those safety valves. So I think early on, N'Keal Harry could be and Cole Kmet will be nice safety valves for him until he just feels really comfortable to ball out and start throwing, bombs to Darnell Mooney, or these awesome slant routes to Velus Jones Jr., where he takes a 15-yard slant and brings it 80 yards for a touchdown. Like, that's when we're going to, you'll probably see N'Keal Harry's numbers drop precipitously, but I think early on he could be a huge safety net for our young quarterback.
Well, I mean, it gives you some added depth, and it gives you, something that you can maybe work with, to your point. He was a former first-round pick, not saying he's going to play like a first-round pick, but I do at least like the fact that they're taking a gamble on him when you kind of go into this season with nothing to lose. I mean, your expectations aren't high. So, maybe you find something in him. And, as I've said before, if there's any sort of possibility that you can make something work this year with the nature of the NFL is, there is something to the idea of kind of the band of misfits. I'm not counting on it being that way, but along the way, even if it's not overall good, you could find some of those dark horses in there. And N'Keal Harry, this is more than just a guy who was like taken late in the draft. He's a former first-round pick. He's got experience in the NFL. So, a change of scenery, new system, maybe it does you some good. I'm not counting on anything big, but there's no reason for me to dislike this move at all.
Yeah, nobody's asking N'Keal Harry to go in there and be a starter or anything. He's going to be a role player. He's going to have a niche on this offense. And I think that makes it much more palatable to have on this roster.
Yeah. And here's another thing too. One could ask, well, if he was going to get released, then why didn't you just wait for him to get released and sign him instead of trading a pick? Well, if he was going to get released, I can guarantee you there would have been multiple teams in on him.
Yeah. And
even with the way things were going over there where he was, it was New England, right?
yeah, New England. And they essentially gave them a 7th round pick, not in next year's draft, the year after's draft. So 2024. And you pick up his contract, which is $1.8 million, I think, or 1.7 in that ballpark. But you have 20 some million, even after picking him up, you're still, I think, 3rd or 4th or 5th. You're right up there in most amount of cap space for this year. And you've got unlimited cap space next year. Like, you are perfectly fine. It is not hurting you at all. It's a drop in the bucket in what you have. And like I said, it's not even guaranteed. So if he does not look like he can play in your offense, then you part ways with him, and you gave up in 2 years. You're, oh man, Bears don't have a 7th round pick. Oh no, it's a 7th round pick. They don't often make your roster.
No, exactly. I mean, to me, you essentially gave up nothing.
Yeah. You value, typically the age-old wisdom is any pick for that, whatever round it is in the future year draft, is a round lower than it would be in this year's draft. So next year's 1st is worth this year's 2nd. It's, rule of thumb kind of thing. So in next year's, or in 2 years, 7th rounder is like an 8th rounder. So that's a round that doesn't even exist. It's essentially as little as you could possibly give up in the NFL for a player.
Right.
Did you happen to read the Dan Pompei article about Darnell Mooney?
No, I did not.
So it's a really good article, but it talks about just the drive that Darnell Mooney has, and that when he got his signing bonus check, you know what he bought? He didn't buy a house. He still rents a house. He still drives the same car he did in high school. He bought a jugs machine.
Oh.
And he catches between 200 and 300 passes every day. Then
hard worker.
And then he bought a second jugs machine that he donated to his high school. So when he would go home to visit,
sick.
He would be allowed to use the jugs machine, so he wouldn't stop. He could practice year round. They said he hasn't taken time off since January. We're in July now. So he has not taken any time off. He has done nothing but trained. He said he doesn't go out. One time he said he's only gone out in the Chicago nightlife once. And that was because Justin Fields organized the team outing. It's the only time he's gone out. He works on his body. He has somebody come to his house 3 times a week for acupuncture, cupping, massage, chiropractic, etc., to take care of his body. And he said he thought he played pretty much every snap in every game he was in last year. And he said he felt sometimes he was a little winded, and Luke Getsy told him that he needs him to be 100% explosive on every snap. So he's been working on his cardio. So he does a regimen where he does a run, a jog, walk for 2.4 miles. Then going back home, the final 2.4 miles back home, he does it at a full sprint as fast as he can for the 2.4 miles. And he said he does that as part of his cardio improvement regimen. And he said that when he was drafted, the team told him that they wanted him to play somewhere in 180, 185 pound range, but he never has. He's always played at like 100, 173-ish. He said he's up to that 180 something weight now. and improved cardiovascular, improved strength. He said he goes into the gym and he'll lift with the linemen, and he said he's lifting as much as they are. The articles talked about how he goes into the facilities at such odd hours that the nighttime security guard, he doesn't even have to slow down. They recognize his car as he's pulling in and they just wave him through.
Look at that.
And that they said since his father died, his drive has just been endless. And I love it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Mooney. I'm ready for him to keep it going.
He said that, he was sad to have Allen Robinson go, but he said when Allen Robinson was not able to play or practice, that last year he took it upon himself as to be an opportunity for him to be the man. And he said now that Allen Robinson's gone, he said he still talks to him regularly, but he now is taking it upon himself that this is his team. He is going to be he's going to do whatever it takes to win. And he saw somebody rip the Bears and their passing offense. He said he screenshotted the post about it, and he said it's been the background of his iPad every single day since, as a motivation to make sure that they're better.
Hey, I love the drive. I love the dedication. And wasn't it him that said it makes sense that the offense makes sense? Somebody said it makes sense.
It was him.
It was him.
And he's been
what does
working.
That tell you?
He worked in the offseason with Justin Fields. I think you're going to see a symbiotic relationship between these two, and you're going to see some awesome things from Darnell Mooney and Justin Fields.
I hope. Well, let's hope, because we saw snippets of it last year. We want to see it all come together.
Yeah, I'm very excited. If Luke Getsy is half of what we're hoping he'll be, you're going to see an improvement in this passing offense. Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention about N'Keal Harry is he's one of the best blocking wide receivers in football. So
that's good to have.
So it further emphasizes the fact that that the Bears are going to be a run first team. Is they brought in another wide receiver that can run block. Byron Pringle is a very good run blocking wide receiver as well. So you've got wide receivers that can block. And I think that was a big factor as well. So possession receiver can block, and not only run block, but what if you get Velus Jones Jr. and Darnell Mooney in a little space, and N'Keal Harry is out there and can throw a block on a cornerback? That could be the difference between a 10-yard pickup and a 50-yard touchdown.
Yeah, it'd be pretty cool.
So clink, 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 clink.
Oh, he's got the Kool-Aid spoon, the big wooden spoon.
Up, and the White Sox just drafted a pitcher, Noah Schultz. Looks like high school pitcher.
So they're going with high school.
He's a lefty. Looks like he's 9'2" and 80 pounds. He will be going to Vanderbilt. He's from Aurora. He played for
local kid.
He plays for Oswego East High School.
Oswego, and he's 6'9".
I don't know. I saw him. He looks so tall and thin. But all right, they drafted a high school pitcher, which seems kind of par for the course.
Yeah.
I kind of want to wrap this up, unless you have some Bulls talk you want to have with where we are with the Blackhawks. They've pretty much cleared most of what they can clear out. There are not a lot of notable names left on this roster. and but they signed Max Domi and Andreas
Athanasiou.
which are guys that are really reasonable contracts that they could flip.
Yeah, and Max Domi was once one of the bigger prospects in the NHL when he was with the Arizona Coyotes. Since then, he's kind of bounced around a bit. And Athanasiou was another guy that I think people were higher on when he was in Detroit and just didn't work out exactly the way they wanted to. But, right now you're filling out a roster. These guys came cheap. And, if Max Domi plays well, Athanasiou plays well enough, you could trade them for something. I mean, they're not going to be here after this coming season. So, you expected moves like this. It wasn't going to be anything mind-blowing. It would be nice to see Max Domi play to the potential that he had in his first few seasons in the NHL. But yeah, I mean, here we are.
Yeah. So they brought them in. And it's going to be interesting because Max Domi and I believe it's Connor Murphy do not have a good history.
Right. I kind of thought about that when he came here. I'm like, oh, is that going to cause some rifts in the locker room?
Unless they partially did it to the Connor Murphy wants to leave.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you're looking at who the top 6 forwards are going to be on this team, as of now, they still have Taves and Kane. You've got both of the new guys, Athanasiou and Domi, Tyler Johnson, Lucas Reichel, Taylor Radish, Sam Lafferty, Philip Kurashev. There's your top 6 somewhere in there. Your defensemen, Seth Jones, Connor Murphy, McCabe, Stillman, Caleb Jones, Regula, Mitchell. Somewhere in there is your defenseman. Your bottom 6, Blackwell, Jujar Kara, Reese Johnson, Mackenzie Entwistle. This is not a good team.
No, and it's not intended to be, that's for sure.
And at this point, I think it was made very clear to both Taves and Kane that this is the roster they're going with, and they're tanking. And it's the, you know what? You can leave, but you got to waive your no trade clause, or you can stay and live in this shit. And honestly, I don't know where they'll go. Either one of them. I have a feeling that Kane probably will waive his no movement clause, but probably not until mid-season.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be on the team come opening night. I think that's pretty clear right now.
Yes, but Taves, unless he just absolutely turns things around, I don't know who's going to pick him up.
Yeah.
Unless it's one of those things where
it is the last year of his contract next year, right?
Yes.
So
unless the Blackhawks are willing to eat most of the contract to get something in return.
Right. I mean, I'm just saying, I think even if the value's low, it might be more likely next year that he's traded just because mid-season, because you only have a few months left to go and he's on the last year of his deal, as opposed to trading him now where you have a full year of, contract left, and that's a lot of money.
Yeah. So, and we had Duncan Keith retire, which put a big cap hit on the Blackhawks, which the Blackhawks GM said that it's not going to impact them, which means that they're just like, screw it. We've got a lot of cap because we don't have any players.
Yeah.
So they're going to absorb that and deal with it. Taves and Kane, the ball's in their court, and they're really tanking for Connor Bedard.
They'll end up with like the 4th pick.
Even if they wound up with the 2nd pick, you just like, wah, 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 wah.
Yeah.
I mean, because that I'm not saying that you can't win without Connor Bedard, but that probably changes your trajectory a lot.
I mean, hopefully they have, backup scenarios for what to do.
Yeah, but I mean, just saying is the Connor Bedard thing. It really is just it just fast forwards, where you're at, because suddenly you're like, oh, hey, we got a guy who's legit right now and can come in day one and play for us. But it doesn't change the fact that you need to hit on the guys you drafted this year, and you need to develop. Ian Mitchell needs to be developed. Lucas Reichel needs to be developed. You need to have some people that can come up and play. Can Tyler Johnson be, continue what he did? You just need players to be either continue the positives that they had at the last season or improve on, and you need to develop your young players that you drafted. And then that makes the Connor Bedard, if you're able to get him, make everything that much better. It's like the cherry on top.
Right.
But either way, this season is going to be fucking bad.
Yep. These tickets will be nice and cheap.
Yeah, but the thing is like, even the primetime games, they've got some garbage primetime games. Like they have several Friday night home games against Arizona.
Woo.
Like it's, the schedule makers didn't do them any favors. And
not that it matters.
No, I mean, the schedule makers didn't do the fans any favors.
No.
Like the most desirable times to go, they're playing terrible teams. So
that means even cheaper tickets.
Truth. So I guess that's a thing. You could start being affordably going to the games and subsidized by the season ticket holders that are going to be paying full price for the tickets and then dumping them in the last minute.
Yep. For like $3.
Oh my God. I'm probably going to be able to get $15 tickets during next season.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And honestly, it's not even going to be one of those things I'm going to really plan ahead. It's just to be like, oh, maybe I'll go tonight, and then I will.
Yeah, it's for me. I'll just hop on the L and go to the game and not have to pay for parking, pay next to nothing for the ticket, get myself some nachos and a big beverage, and I'm a happy camper.
Yep, exactly.
Oh, is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Nope, I think I've said my piece.
The guy that just got drafted by the Astros, it must be his dad sitting next to him, and he's got like a black short sleeve collared shirt, but the top button is undone, and he's got like a white, like a undershirt underneath it. But the way he was sitting, and it was at their house and not there, so it wasn't like an HD camera. It's like a fuzzy feed,
like a webcam.
Yeah, it looked like he had one of those like priest collars, and I'm like, why does he have a priest sitting next to him? And then it was like, and then the guy turned, and I could see it was a button-up shirt that just the white part was sticking out because the way he was turned, and with the bad image, I was like, oh no, it's just his dad.
Yeah,
like that's much more reasonable than just randomly having a priest in shorts and whatever that thing is called, the white collar. But all right, congratulations to Drew Gilbert getting drafted.
There you go.
Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Nope.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody so much for listening. Please hit subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, Spotify, etc. Share this podcast with your friends. That's how we grow the show. Follow us on social media at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com. ShyFanPat2 on Twitter for Alex, or AlexanderJPatCreative.com for all the cool stuff that Alex does. And again, thank you guys so much for listening. And until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan.
She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like Remember, New Yorkers, smoking crack is not legal on planes.
Bears 31 to -7.
The Bears! Oh, when the Bears go bearing down